Hello everybody and welcome back. So let's continue looking into this. We have our fire system and as I was saying, it's not that hard to get the fire. You just need a decent source, add some noise to it and emit temperature and let it rise. That's it. There's nothing complex about that. The complex part is getting it to work nicely with the geometry. So the most efficient way to create collision is using SDF. And I'm gonna show how to do that. So we have our RBD sim here. Okay. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a VDB from Polygon. I'm gonna set this to 2 and make sure that I tick on fill interior, and I'm gonna compute the SDF of this. Now this value is quite big, so I'm going to lower it to 1, and the lower the value, the more precise the collision is going to be. So we'll go to 0.2, and we have to have a decent collision because this is what the sim will use. If let's say we have a fire coming off from underneath, that's where it's going to escape from. Okay, so we have to make sure that the collision has enough resolution for us to see all of this. And the other thing that is important for later, not for the fire segment, not for the fire part, is to compute the velocity as a field. So not just the surface field. I'm actually going to call this collision. So I remember what the use is for in case I get lost. And then I'm going to sample the velocity and call it V or vel. And that's gonna make sure we have a velocity attribute and it's a volume data. Now it's very important to tick on fill interior for this to work properly. If you don't do that, you're not gonna get the data you need. Next, a visibility node, and hide the volume data so it's not getting in the way of visualizing that. Okay, so that's what I did. That's our collision. I cached it to disk and this is what it looks like. And I used the value of 0.2. It's not very accurate, and the volume is quite fast, so if I scrub through, it shouldn't take too long for it to read. Okay, so this is great, but it's not enough for us to get the details that we want. This is too bulky. There's so much, so there's very little gaps, but it's great for collision. But it's not gonna work with the flame wrapping around. There's no escape here, like all this. So what I did is I used the VDB reshape node, and I let's put this, a VDB reshape node, a reshape SDF. Connect this here, and then I'm gonna use a erode method, and I set the offset to 2. You can try different values if you are in this scenario, but I use the value of 2 to make any gap more permanent, more visible, and this is gonna allow the fire to escape more. Now there is no way we could have gotten both, you know, like very accurate collision and very accurate and very nice escaping without this hack. So the collision is not 100% accurate with the geometry, but this is needed for the visual, so I did that. And I also scaled everything down by 10 by a factor of 10 because the scale was quite big and I wanted to work on a 10 by 10 meter fire, and working on 100 is going to be too big, so I just did a 10 by 10 and I tweaked everything to make it look on that scale, even though it's meant for something bigger. So this is it. This is all I need, and I call this SDF. And then let's go to the solver. Pardon me. And I'm gonna do it here. So I'm gonna create a volume source and paste in the path and make sure that I change this to collision. And we just have to make sure that these names are correct. So collision is the scalar field, and then V is what this node is looking for, and it's multiplying it by 1.5. So I merge these two. And then the other thing, for this to work properly, we have to make sure under advanced collision, we need to take this on. Use volume velocity for collision. Okay, so that's all that's all we need for the collision data. Now, this is great, but I also wanted to have the fire wrap around or respect the geometry that is around it, or basically be smart about what's happening around the fire. This is also applicable for the smoke. I wanted the smoke to flow through the surface, okay? And we're gonna create a different source or a different velocity force that we're going to use in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit.